Hello and welcome back to another special episode of Fun Friday with an incredible guest here, media icon, media legend, syndicating guru, Derek Peterson. Welcome to the show.
What's up, brother? Thanks for having me on, man. It's good to see you again.
I know. Is your stomach still full from Astros and Buck and Ryder? Because I think I had to get rolled out of restaurants the last couple of weeks when we were together and eating like gluttons. I think we had more food that was more meat left on the bone than I've ever seen. It was unlike the Lone Star Capital deal where, every ounce was left over seemingly.
Yeah, man, that was I strategically sat at both dinners. You get of my age, you understand that when you walk into these dinners, you sit in the middle of the table for two reasons. One, you're able to, navigate conversations on both sides. So I could just talk to the whole table. But really more importantly, I had access to both seafood towers, one with my left hand and one with my right hand, which really did pay off at the end of the night.
Exactly. Well, that's why everyone should be investing with you because you always are able to navigate the best angles and opportunities possible. It's very opportunistic of you. I give it full stamp of approvals. But let's get into the show. With that said, you are a media guy, you are an advertising guy. Can you kind of tell the audience and people that are listening to the show kind of about your background and your expertise and kind of your avatar and kind of the angles you've been able to approach the syndication business? Because seemingly your name is in everyone's mouths in a good sense because everyone uses you for the marketing stuff, for their content, for their information. So if you are an up and coming syndicator, capital raiser, any of that nature, you need to be talking to this guy on this show right now. So please give us your background. Don't spare a detail. We'd love to hear about you, how you got it going, and all that good stuff.
Yeah, man. So I'll tell you a quick little story how I got into this business. It's pretty interesting. So I, like most, wore the corporate hat. Out of college, I went to software sales, software and payroll sales, and from there I graduated to OR medical device sales. Did that for about a decade. And then, like most folks, after they wear the corporate hats, they kind of go, "Hey, you know what? I'm going to stick my foot into the entrepreneurial tub and body of water to see if this is something that I can do myself." So I opened a medical distribution business. About 2 years later, I sold that, started another one, did that for a few more years, and then came to realize that I enjoyed building businesses. I enjoyed doing marketing, but I started to get this age in my life where I'm like, I really don't like healthcare. I don't want to do this anymore. I want to do something that's more in alignment with what I like to do day to day. So work doesn't feel like work. I'm not just going out to make money and trading that for stress, right? I'd rather go out there and do things that allow me to be creative and is in alignment with my heart and soul. So I was like, hey, to my wife, I was like, let's start a travel agency because we love to travel, which we'll learn more about later. And I also really love doing marketing. I enjoy that aspect of creating businesses. So we opened a marketing agency because you figure the two went well together. A digital marketing agency, you had the ability to navigate that business from any corner of the earth, right? If you truly set it up as a digital marketing agency. So my first client was somebody by the name of Chris Benson over at Reliant Real Estate Management, or their self-storage operator. And the only reason it was my first marketing client was because I was his first boss out of college. So the dude just gave me a shot. So went into that space and over the years and over time, this is back in 2018, I started to do, and we did marketing for any company, right? So, Craig, we did it for a plumber, a pizza shop. It didn't really matter. So we were kind of broad niched in that sense.
Yeah.
Yep. And I started to get to a point where I started doing more and more of those folks in the capital raising space. So someone came to me and they said, "Hey, dude, how come you don't raise capital? Could you build all these capital raising sites?" And I was like, I want to, I just don't know how to get in the space. Like I'd been an LP investor. I'd done that, but I really didn't know much about it, if I'm being completely honest. And they said, well, you've got this skill set in marketing for capital raisers. You should niche down your marketing firm, just do that. And someone's going to ask you to raise capital for them and offer you like some sort of position within their company. So lo and behold, I turned my wife, I'll never forget. And I was like, hey, let's do that. Let's find somebody to hitch our wagon to. So we did that, started a company. It was called Adapt Wealth. And I had a couple partners. And over the course of a couple of years, we raised 20 million bucks as capital allocators, as co-GB partners with reputable sponsors and operators, and learned a lot, right? Learned a lot about how can I take the marketing tools that I've built for other people and apply them to myself. That kind of gave me a little street cred in the space. So now the marketing firm really was turned on a whole new notch because like, oh, here's the marketing guy who's a marketing firm, but he also does this. Like, sweet, this is my guy. And I learned more and more and more about it. But then, to be honest, that capital raising company, my two partners, it set like third, fourth position in the priority list. And I wanted more. I wanted to grow faster. I wanted to grow up to be like Craig. I wanted to wear the sponsor hat, right? Where I could actually be part of the GP team and we play more of a major role. So that's where I met my now partner over at 10Y several years ago. We started that company, and again, both the marketing firm and that company has gone through a tremendous trajectory over the last few years. Where to date we've built well over 300 brands in the real estate capital raising space for major sponsors and operators, capital raisers. And then this past year, we raised $48 million for our two funds, and had some real good success. So it's been a wild ride, man. Just like a few years ago, I was in Bali, Indonesia in 2019. I had one employee. It was me. And I had yet to build one brand. And here we are, 2024, and just raised 50 mil. And I'm on a podcast with you after some seafood towers in Arizona last week. So that is my journey into this space. And it's been wild, man.
What is
Blessed.
crazy to hear is the timetable from 2019 to now, and the speed and the condensed nature that you just walked through to accomplish that much so quickly is so impressive. And I want to, just think about a couple of things here to unpack, because you said so many awesome things there. But to start with, working with over 300 companies, being a capital raiser yourself, naturally, you know what works and what doesn't work. So when you do kind of look at someone and you audit and take on a new client in the syndication space and whatnot, what are people typically missing? Where are they deficient, and where to kind of putting on some, key little, tweaks and incremental improvements do people start seeing some good results? Obviously you don't have to go through the full plan and full implementation. You got to save some secrets, but with what you're willing to relinquish, what are some of the easy things and hacks that you do to really kind of get the train on the tracks and get people going?
Probably the biggest thing is we try to simplify what seems like a very complex process for people, right? Anyone can make something complicated, but I think the true genius comes in those who can make something complex simple. So we try to boil down how their marketing plan looks into three buckets, and then I'll talk about one point in one of the buckets. So those three buckets, and this has to do with marketing for any company, right? At the end of the day, you, me, Domino's Pizza, the plumber, we're all the same thing, and that's a solution to a problem. So you have really, when it comes to marketing, you have a front end, a back end, and then traffic. So your front end is, okay, what's your website? What's your branding? What's your copy? What's your videos? What is that place, that digital storefront where you're sending people that when they come to that line, they come to that hook, there's bait on that hook for them to bite. And for for that part, I'm going to spend a minute on that, and I'll just briefly touch on the other two buckets. It's we spend an inordinate amount of time with our clients and our customers and really truly understanding who is the niche and avatar they're trying to reach, right? And who are they trying to attract? And also, who are they as a person? So a lot of these capital allocators, fund managers, co-GPs, and even sponsors and operators, they are of a certain type of person, right? And I find that people are ultimately investing not in the sticks and the shingles and the deal, but they're investing in you. So we want your personality and your persona to come across, right? Lone Star guys, you guys should have your own suit line. You guys are like, everyone sees you wearing the suits. I have not seen you in anything but a suit or Beardsley. I'm pretty convinced he was born in a suit, and he'll be laid to rest in a suit and never have one off, right? So you guys own that, right? That's
I think
part
he
of your
showers in it
niche.
too, allegedly. Yeah.
Allegedly, I wouldn't be
I've never
surprised,
seen
right?
him
He
shower.
swims
That's
in
why I said
it.
allegedly, but for natural reasons.
so so with that said, it's like, that's part of your niche, that's part of your avatar. You guys are looking to attract institutional capital, right? So you've got the Manhattan vibe. You guys wear that, and you wear that well, and you hit the cover off the ball, right? Well, we have other folks, like I can give you another example. We've got Mike Downey at Farm Raised Capital. He raises capital from those in the agricultural space. He raises money from farmers. So if you look at his branding, like the video we shot, he's in a tractor with a hoodie and a hat on, right? And that is who he's trying to attract. If he saw you in a suit or Craig in a suit, that may turn him off. Like, that's not your niche, that's not your avatar. That is Mike's avatar. So we spend an inordinate amount of time on that. And once we identify that, everything is built around that, all the copy, all the emails, all the lead magnets, everything that is part of your brand is built off that. So you consider your brand, it's actually, a brand's not a thing, right? People are like, what's a brand? A brand's actually not a thing. It's a series of things that when put together create a new association. So it's like a bouquet of flowers. Alex Hermosi talks about this. So every flower in your bouquet has to be in alignment with that. Your lead magnet, your copy, your video, what you wear, how you talk, the way you post on social media, what podcasts you go on. And if you have a bouquet of flowers and one's dead and like wilted over, the whole bouquet looks kind of like garbage, right? So it's important for people to understand who they're talking to, then always speak in that context. So that's bucket one, that's front end. Back end, what's the system of emails, text messages, and conversations that happen once someone opts into your system? We work together with the clients to build that harmoniously to speak to, again, it's another bouquet or another rose in the bouquet. And then you have your front end and your back end put together. You've got your mousetrap with the cheese on it. Then the last part is traffic. Okay. What tactics and strategies based off the niche and avatar you are trying to attract, whether it's a farmer, institutional capital, doctors, dentists, pilots, whatever it is, where should you be fishing? What ponds are your investors swimming in? So you know which, lure to cast in there to pull those folks in. So it's very customized. In marketing, you can't create, and every brand we do, man, is completely custom because everyone's different and we want everybody to have their own blue water where they're going to find their investors. So the riches are in the niches. So we really niche you down, right? So
I
that's
love that.
that's a couple of secret sauce and a few things that I'll throw out without giving away the farm.
Yeah, thank you so much for unveiling the curtain. Obviously, I want to give you enough of an ad and enough of a teaser where people are going to come in, but not too much where they don't feel like they need you. Because trust me, people do need you. They need to work with you, especially if they have a podcast. They need help with basically going from A to Z. If you started from nothing, this guy can expand that learning curve and really crunch down the amount of time and make and the mistakes you may make along the journey. So expedite that with someone like Derek at your team. With that said, can you just break down real quick? We throw this term out there all the time, but I really just want to make sure that we have this here, which is the term avatar. So when we say
Mhm.
avatar, we're not talking about the James Cameron billion-dollar movie that was produced, but something different. So can you explain just real briefly what an avatar is and what we mean by that? Because we say it in this space, but just so, if you're just a retail investor, if you're, an LP, so we can understand or they can understand what you're referring to, or someone who's maybe newer that's getting into the syndication space about speaking to certain people.
Yeah, so an avatar is, I'm trying to think of another term we can use for that. It's sort of your ideal investor, right? So what does if I was to come to you, Craig, and I'd say, explain to me who your typical investor is. How old are they? Are they male or are they female? What do they do for a living? How much money do they make a year? What are their interests? What are they into? Right? If I was asked you to describe that individual down to the color of their hair and what shoes they're wearing, you having a real true understanding of who that individual is, that's your avatar. And that's different for different people, right? So, we use Mike again, I'll use Mike just as an example. He works with farmers, right? So, his avatar is going to be somebody that's probably, in their 50s and 60s, work really hard, probably has an aversion to like the government, doesn't, has some concerns about, because a lot of farmers are savers about giving their money to other individuals for investment purposes. They may be a little resistant. That's an example of a small avatar. So we'd have to take that into consideration and write copy, create videos, create lead magnets that speak to the problem that person has, right? Because again, your solution to a problem, right? I'm a solution problem. Domino's Pizza is a solution problem. I'm hungry. I want pizza delivered to my house and I want it to be effortless. That's their value, right? So once you understand and empathize with your avatar and what problem they have, then you can really do magic because you can create your branding specifically around that. Because what a lot of people do is they'll go out and they'll create a brand, they'll hire somebody on Fiverr or Upwork, and they'll save, they'll save some money, right? But in the end, it'll come at the cost of not being able to convert them into investors because they'll arrive at the website and they'll not really have a a feeling of like, oh, hey, you get me. So if you nail your avatar and your niche, you understand them, then when they arrive at your site and they read those first few words and see that picture, they're like, oh, they get me. Like that's me, right? They're able to connect with that brand. It's immediate trust. And then you can kind of pull them into your universe. And the thing is, again, the riches are in the niches. So don't be afraid to niche down, Craig. You guys have done a good job with this with your branding. I've seen it, niche down. You're not going to appeal to everybody. A lot of people want to cast this big wide net and try to make their avatar massive. Just, hey, I want people that want to invest passively in real estate. No good. Too broad. You really need to niche that down, because it doesn't connect with people, and that's ultimately we're in the business of connection.
And as you say, or as everyone knows, if you're speaking to everyone, you're actually, in fact, speaking to no one. And that's a really big thing for someone to think about. I know, a lot of people are like, oh, well, this, that's like, no, trust me. Over the course of time, you're going to start with your target audience and you will get referrals and people that probably don't fit exactly into that mold. But you need to have a target profile and think about how people are going to be perceiving your marketing information, your conversations, how you structure things, how you carry yourself. And for us, and Rob and myself, I can just speak for us. We're suit and tie guys in Manhattan office in One World Trade Center looking, for, all sorts of equity, not just institutional, but we definitely have a institutional lean. But I just want to make this a public service announcement. We work with all sorts of people. We work with just normal, LP, limited partner investors, institutional capital raisers, 1031 exchange, mom and pop owners, to boutique capital raisers, and obviously big titans and people like yourselves who are raising, $40 million on projects, right? So there's a wide bucket that we raise from, but typically speaking, our star avatar and where we started from, as you said, where we, really came from was the institutional side, but we do want to appeal to as many people as possible, but also keeping in mind the niche. With that said, how do you think your unique background with marketing, with understanding SEO, with understanding, internet leads and cold traffic, and really understanding how to monetize things in the age we're in right now, how do you think that's really been beneficial for, the 10Y team, for you raising capital? What do you think, how do you think that really interacts with what you do and, has helped to your success?
So it's helped me in a way that you wouldn't think, right? So you would think like, okay, here's the marketing guy. He can build a great Facebook ad with, a great, click through rate and lead magnets. And yes, we've created all that stuff. But what's really helped us with 10Y is, you know, this space has become a little crowded. And I guess I have good visibility on that, Craig, just because I build so many different brands and I've seen like every type of deal. I built every type of brand for what I feel is like nearly every niche and avatar. When I get a new one, I'm like, oh, sweet, something new, right? So with every niche and avatar, I started to develop this concern that like, oh my gosh, there's just so many people in the space. How do you differentiate yourself? So when I looked at sort of the 10Y product and what we're looking to do and the way our investment thesis is structured, really we were trying to create an experience that was more focused on a destination versus a deal. And that was eye-opening for me, right? A lot of folks and a lot of brands, they're focused somewhat on a deal, right? So here's your IRR, here's your cash on cash, and that's great, right? I mean, you should have that. That's important information. But ours is a 10-year fund, right? It's going to be hard to sell somebody in a 10-year fund when you're just talking about IRR and cash on cash numbers. You really need to take them on a journey that allows them to feel like you're going to a destination. It's going to a meaningful place. So 10Y stands for 10 years to retirement. So right there, your timeline and where we're trying to take you in the name. That was intentional. So all our branding that we created around it, as far as like this marketing background that I have, we spent a lot of time on the story and trying to create that investment thesis and box it up in a way that was super sexy and had that kind of like apple.com minimalistic vibe and feel. We spent an inordinate amount of time on it. My partner Bala we were in, I mean, it took us months and months and months, right? You'd think I'd be able to do that faster, being that I had the resources of marketing team behind us. So once that was created, an unintentional consequence of having built brands for multiple different capital allocators was it gave me access to a lot of folks that were in the business that I had built their brand, right? And I'd built their marketing machine and got an opportunity to know these individuals and to see who was a player and maybe who still had a little to learn. So it gave me an opportunity to retrospectively pick my kickball team and say, hey, Mike, or hey, Gib, or hey, all these different individuals, do you guys want to come raise for us? Here's the opportunity. These are the metrics, these are the economics, blah, blah, blah. And lo and behold, that worked really, really well. We were able to, erect the team that we really all linked arms together and were able to take down some significant capital on top of our regular retail investor base that came through our traditional marketing to collectively do big things back in 2023. So those two things, the story, the deal, or the destination, not the deal, and then the background with access to all these capital raisers was the secret sauce that really allowed us to have great success this year.
What I really love too is the value of partnership, which you of all people clearly are leaning into really more than most people, right? Because you're the one who kind of looks under everyone's business hood and sees what's going
Mhm.
on there. So you acutely know who's really producing, who's crushing it, and who maybe be blowing a little bit of smoke, which is so uniquely perfect for kind of the super team, the kickball team, or as Rob and I, Gib and you and myself were talking about as the super team, the Avengers team, where it's just all the superheroes really top flight capital partners coming together to create something larger and get better economic structures and a bigger slice of the pie, which is so cool. So I think it's so special and unique about yourself. And, one of the unattended, purposes or upsides was probably not just the marketing side, but knowing pretty well from a business perspective what works for other people and what levers you may or may not want to pull when you go through the process, when you do run ads, when you do SEO, things of that nature, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it was a combination of all things. It's funny when you start to get into different businesses and you think you're driving your ship in a certain direction. You just want to make sure you don't have blinders on, right? You don't have these blinders on because you start to see these opportunities in the periphery to be able to get the same task done. I intended with 10Y when I was brought on as a partner there, like, hey, we're just going to do your traditional methods to go out and attract retail investors like we do for everyone else. And if I'm being honest, I I got the idea from you. It was it was a year ago that we sat down and I saw how you had created a team, under the Lone Star brand and it beautifully delivered for all of them as well as your investors. And I had an epiphany. I'm like, oh, that's the way to do it. And you're right. I have a unique look under the hood where maybe others don't have that opportunity. So I certainly capitalized on that, and we really built a great team. And that's probably something that, as I look back at my career, that's the one tangible skill that I'd say I have. I don't have many skills, but that one is probably one of them. Is the ability to create good teams and to rally troops, and to get people excited about something. And the power in that, as you know all too well, is massive.
Well, I'm beyond flattered. I almost have chills thinking about you taking a book tool out of our book because we do so much that you do. And it's so funny. You see things where, I've seen you from afar, and obviously we met at Raise Fest in Louisville over a year ago, and then doing
Mhm.
it again to see the progression that you've done in your career. And then obviously, I'm sure using us, it's like we're both so mutually inspired, which just makes me so excited for the point when you kind of apply the super team and we merge together. And hopefully, very soon this year, work on a next project once the 10Y fund is fully done, full cycle. And, to your point, we basically met with about 30 people, 40 people at Raise Fest a year ago and syndicated the biggest deal in Lone Star Capital history, which is a $105 million tax abatement PFC portfolio that we closed. And we raised about $25 million from that room, from that opportunity over the course of the year, because unfortunately that raised a little bit longer than we anticipated. But to your point, you in fact did the exact same thing. So I actually didn't fully know that story. So it's kind of cool to hear that materialize that you did in fact, look at that and implement that strategy. And, success leaves blueprints. We're all looking to trade notes and share. And the beauty of working with a group like you guys is, the collective, synergies and the tips and trades and secrets we can share with one another to only help each other, because this is not a zero-sum game business. This is a collaboration business. What I mean by that is everyone in the transaction can win. The last seller can make money for their LPs. We can have our investors solve for a tax need problem or an investment problem. The lenders can win. The title people can win. The tenants get a good property. So everyone can win in real estate transaction. I don't want that to be, missed upon this whole process, that there's such a great way to win. This is not always a zero-sum game business like, kind of, stock trading maybe or crypto maybe. For someone to be losing, someone else, or for someone to be winning, someone else has to be losing. That's not the case in this space. And that's why I love it so much. With that said, kind of segueing to a different kind of thought, And I don't know, we didn't talk about this before, nor did I prep you with this question, but how do you think ChatGPT is going to change the game, or, that kind of AI world is going to change? And how are you kind of trying to stay ahead of it and make sense of everything as the landscape of internet just generally is changing? Is there stuff that you're kind of in the research, the R&D phase of, your media agency right now? Is that kind of the process currently? Like, how do you see that right now? And the changes that are underway that are happening very, very quickly.
Yeah. So when AI came out about a year and a half ago, right? When ChatGPT really hit the scene, which is probably like a year ago in November, it was I was my mind was blown, as I'm sure many people were blown as well. And not many people, I'm actually amazed by the number of people that still don't know what it is, right? Because the value that it delivers. So as an agency owner, and then I'll speak to it from a sort of an operational and capital raising perspective. As an agency owner, my first look at it, I was like, oh, we're screwed, right? Like this AI is going to take over. We're gonna lose all our business because you're going to be able to type a prompt and it's going to be able to build a brand in a second. Well, that's actually not the case, right? Because people, it's not there yet. It will never get there. What it really did is it
They
allow
need
us.
hand holding.
They need hand holding, and they just want people just want it done for them, right? That's
Yeah.
like when I go out to dinner, like I can cook dinner at home. I just don't want to do it, right? So I want you to cook my dinner, right? Or this guy to cook my dinner. So same thing. They want the brand built, then they want to feel like they're getting consultation. They want to feel like they're getting advice and they're getting wisdom from some form of a guru in the space. So that value will always stay there. But what it did was, with AI coming in, I am an absolute freak with this stuff. I watch an hour plus a day of stuff on AI news. We tinker around with it. We have a full-time employee that all they do is understand, implement, and create bots and products that are related to AI, because I saw the writing on the wall. If we didn't become just monomaniacally focused on this, we're going to become irrelevant really fast. And what's crazy about AI, for I'm sure you know, and all the people listening, is it the speed by which it changes. So I've been trying to create this course, for example, in AI for capital raisers. And by the time I get sort of done creating sort of the last few chapters, all the other stuff I created is obsolete. I mean, the speed by which it moves is pure insanity. So, from a marketing perspective, there are so many tools you can use out there to sort of hack the marketing game. And I will be releasing that course. It'll be free. It'll be on my website, where people can go and they can download and learn how to use AI to be able to go do some of the day-to-day stuff within their capital raising business. And just to give you an example, like this morning, I wrote an email to investors with an update. So we created a bot within a GPT bot where we gave it our PPM as a knowledge base. Then we also gave it the tone of voice and the way in which we always want our emails written. Then I gave it a bunch of examples. So that I created basically its brain. So now in any given time, I can go in there, hit a button, say, here's bullets of like a back of the napkin type of stuff that I'll write inside of there. Hit one button, writes the email, like to perfection, better than I could in a matter of seconds. By the time I, go refill my coffee and come back, like it's ready to rock. So, so you can take some of those tasks that we're doing on a day-to-day basis that relates to marketing and all these other things, and really take it to the next level. There's tools for doing analysis of underwriting, for doing analysis of your legal and looking for things in your PPM, evaluating deals. I mean, you name it, it's there, and it just changes every single day. So marketing is probably one of the most heavily affected spaces as it relates to AI. ChatGPT just being one cog in that AI wheel, and the stuff that's coming from Google and like search generated experiences, SGE, and all these things is going to be wild to watch. It reminds me, Craig, you're probably too young for this, but like back in the day when cell phones came out, you had like Motorola, you had all these different
Nokia.
phone
Yep.
types. Nokia, you had
Yeah. The
Nextel, like
Razor,
the
Motorola,
all that
the
stuff.
brick phone.
The brick phone, I had these things, right? And that was a race to see who would be the dominant force in this space. And there are a few major players, and it'll be very interesting to see what happens. But what's exciting and scary is the rate at which this stuff learns. It's wild. I mean, we could spend a whole show just talking about the freakiness of that. So yeah, don't get me started on the AI, man. You just struck a chord with me. I'm like, I got tingles. You had them
Well,
earlier. I got them now.
yeah. Well, the funny thing is, what can we do to solve for the changing environment today? And you mentioned how lean your shop is from the media agency perspective, which I think is the future of any business, is not going to be these massive, massive shops. It's going to be more niche specific, utilize opportunities and technology, like Rob and I spoke about on our Lone Star Capital podcast. These items are deflationary. So this will likely be deflationary, but if you have a very, very thick and non-lean shop, that's a very, very tough thing to be in. Lone Star Capital is incredibly lean. People are shocked to hear that there's only 8 people on the corporate staff, which is not that many people for the output that we have. We, of course, have VAs, property managers, things of that nature, but the corporate staff is very lean, and we're also implementing AI tools. But how can we avoid, becoming obsolete? Well, it's personal branding. It's putting content out there. It's doing things like this. It's giving everyone a good experience. And also it's doing what we did in Phoenix, which is being in person, making people feel
Mhm.
emotionally charged, making people feel good, taking care of people. It's really going to go back to honestly just I think really having important soft skills, which you have, some of the best soft skills of anyone I've ever met. You're very personable, you're very likable, you're friendly, you're on it, you get back to people right away. It's having those things and giving people the best experience possible are the businesses that win best, right? We're all solving for the same basically return metrics. It's not like Lone Star Capital can waltz around and buy deals for 10% discounts. That's just not realistic. The winner is the highest bidder. But how can we make people feel? How can we get out of the commodity space? And it's doing content, it's doing podcasting, it's doubling down on your branding. And it's why everything you're doing right now is actually that much more important to be part of your agency, to be, utilizing the tips and tricks and to stay on top of it. It's never been better. So I just really want to hit that emphasis and give you another free ad and plug. And listen, it's stuff like this that is important. With that said, transitioning out of the marketing side, which we could talk about
Mhm.
for forever, what was your first real estate investment?
Gosh, my first real estate investment was a traditional syndication. It was in Southie Boston. It was like I'm trying to remember what it was. It was like uh, a 15 unit in Southie Boston, overlooking the water. It was, your traditional, 5-year hold, refi 2-year standard cookie cutter, value add. And I had a good experience. Got my money back, and you put that into another deal. Had a good experience, got the money back, put it into 2 other deals, and I put the money back in the deal from the operator from my first deal. That was 10 years ago, and it's still stuck in there. So sometimes deals don't go the right way, and I've definitely experienced that. And people that had a good experience with, it's not a good experience right now, but it doesn't mean that they're not going to be able to bring it to the finish line, which I'm fingers crossed that one I'll get my money back here shortly. But yeah, that was my first deal, was just a straight value add in Southie Boston, out of all places. That was a
Very
while
good.
ago.
Yeah, well, unfortunately that deal didn't go as well as you'd like, but it was early enough in your investing career and syndication career to realize, oh, wait, you can actually lose money in real estate and investing, or, have things not go to projections. And unfortunately, it's probably good that before you probably raise money for that, it was just your own personal capital. So you could kind of feel the pain of that and not have to
Mhm.
answer for other people when you go through your capital raising experience and that being on your track record, which is super important. So there is value from time to time for things not going exactly as it's planned, because it will shape and mold you for a better future and a better tomorrow, for the better or the worse. Obviously, reputation, can change at any minute, but making money and money coming and going is a lot more fluid than your reputation coming back, of course. With that said, obviously you're doing 10Y right now, which for those who don't know
Mhm.
what 10Y is, it's a build to rent community. It's doing multiple cycles with Bala. For those who don't know Bala, he's a really, really sharp Silicon Valley guy from the tech perspective that now put his brain power with some of the best and the brightest, like Derek and the 10Y team, of course, to raise equity for this deal. But that's a build to rent community. What other types of deals have you historically raised capital for?
Yeah. So before this, when I had the capital raising company, I raised for traditional multifamily value add. So I did a few raises there with operator Alex Kogan over at Ashland Capital. I had some great experiences with Alex, great crew over there. Then we did a senior assisted living facility. And we also did some Bitcoin mining. So the capital raising company that we had was variety of different asset classes that we want to provide people with opportunities in. So the Bitcoin mining didn't go as well there for a little while, just because it was, everything kind of went offline for a little while when Bitcoin dropped down below, 25. But it's looking a little bit better. And then I've raised capital for also student housing. So I've done that a few times and I've had a good experience. It's pretty much very similar to multifamily, just a little bit different. And you've raised capital for a few deals that I had when I lived up in Albany, New York. That was like 20 years ago, and put some of my own capital on that. And I would have categorized that as what we used to call student ghetto. So it was student housing, but it was kind of like in the hood. It was like it was pretty shady. And I can tell you some stories about our tenants, but that was my inroads into real estate and realizing I didn't want to be a landlord or any of that stuff. Early in the game with some of those things. So, but I've raised for a lot of different things. A variety of different asset classes, but multifamily probably being the one that I enjoy the most.
Absolutely. And what do you look for when you're making an investment and what you're looking to raise? Are you a stickler on a certain return profile? Are you looking only at certain markets? Clearly, you must be slightly open-minded to your markets if you're in New York, and then probably, like Arizona, which is a sunshine state, a little bit more pro-business. So you've kind of been all over the spectrum from a political perspective. But, what are some of the key things that you seek when you do raise for an investment? What are you looking for? Is it, the sponsor? Is it the deal itself? What do you narrow down and focus on when you get pitched deals? Because naturally raising over $20 million, which you've done, and also having the network effect, which is, the top capital raisers, deals come on your plate all the time. Seemingly if you raise deals or raise money for deals, deals will find their way into your inbox, right? One way or another through LinkedIn. So, what are you looking for? What's your gatekeeping process?
So what I used to look for versus what I look for now, I think is something that changes over the passage of time, right? I'm sure if I asked you the same question, like, what did you look for, so many years ago, 5, 6 years ago versus what you look now, you learn through the reps, right? You learn through the experiences. And I didn't really know a lot when I first started doing it, 20 years ago. I really knew nothing. Right. I was like, oh, I live in this town. This must be a good place to be able to invest. I'm sort of investing in myself. That's a good decision. Then as I started to raise capital for other people, it was sponsor first, right? So really doing a good bit of due diligence. Because at the end of the day, I think that's ultimately where the rubber meets the road, right? You can have the greatest asset, you can have the greatest numbers, the underwriting, the PPM, that thing is just on fire. That's how good it is. But if the individuals and the team that are behind that, uh, you don't feel have the competency, the experience, and the track record, I think that's where things really go awry. And I've seen this personally. So I've raised for people where the level of due diligence that was done I thought was deep enough. And then I found that it wasn't. And I found out it wasn't for two reasons. One, it wasn't a good experience after, the veil was lifted and things really got into play. But moreover, when I started to put the sponsor and operator hat on and I saw how far people looked up our skirt, I was like, oh, that's how you do it, right? Background checks and like there's the level of due diligence that people did far exceeded what I'd done before when I'd raised capital. Now, in full disclosure, I'm more like, hey, do the marketing guy. That's always been my role. So my partners were the ones when I had a capital raising company who did a lot of the due diligence. I trusted in their judgment. That was their superpower that they brought to the table. And I would chime in and give a few points. But it really wasn't until 10Y where I saw how, and I'm sure you experienced, I saw you smile when I brought that up, how far people really look into you. So sponsor,
Yeah,
market,
I'm
deal, I'd say in
laughing.
that order.
Yeah, well, I'm just laughing because being on both sides of it, you start to appreciate certain things. And, if I started just, for whatever reason, if, some things changed down the future of my life and I was just raising capital, the paradigm will shift, right? But it's so funny what happens when you're on the other side of the spectrum, hearing some of the questions for the better or worse, what they come through and hearing people's pain points on the investor side is super, super interesting, right? So
It
it's
is.
funny how the spectrum and the questions changes and the flow of things is different when you're sitting in the GP and you're the receiver of the capital, what that looks like, right? So what are some of the things that as you move forward and as you close out the 10Y fund, do you think are going to change and you're going to implement into the structure and process? I mean, the beautiful thing is that who's first in class because you're so deep in the business. But if you were to work with someone like us, which hopefully will happen this year, wink, wink, would love that. But if you were to do that, what would be the process and what would be different about that that you do today as opposed to what you would have done, prior?
Great question. And that's something that we're constantly evaluating, right? And so there's definitely a lot of key takeaways that were taken over the last 12 months, right? We had great success. I mean, you can look at the scoreboard and you can see what we took down, and it was like, oh wow, you guys killed the game. You must be perfect, right? But the reality is, on the other side of the curtain, the processes that we had in place could absolutely be refined, right? So that probably the area where I think we'd have the greatest room for improvement going into these next raises, like with for example, uh, is the investor relations side of things. So what I find that from a marketing perspective, it's not difficult to create great branding around a great deal and attract a retail investor to come on a webinar, to listen to the webinar, and to put in that soft commit through your portal. It's at that point, I think a lot of folks that are in the capital raising space, and I've even seen this with sponsors and operators, are like, cool, I'm good. Like they're in, but they're really not. They're not even close. That's the easy part, right? That's like taking like the eggs and the ingredients out of the refrigerator and putting it on the kitchen counter, right? That's what I would equate that to actually make it and put it in the oven and have it come out and be ready to eat. You haven't even begun that. And that gap is that investor relations gap. So you got to strike, I think, while the iron's hot, right? You've got somebody who just came off a webinar. They're excited. Yeah, they just talked to their wife or their husband, like, yo, this looks really good. And then if you take a week to call those people back, they get busy. Stuff gets lost in the email stack. But if you set the expectation on the call, like, hey, this is what's going to happen. Jennifer from our team is going to call you tomorrow. They're going to spend 30 minutes with you, going to walk you through the portal. And this is the steps. This is the timeline. That is something that I feel was somewhat missing in our first round of raise. And we tweaked it to make it better on our second fund, and we can tweak it again to make it better, because that delta of what's lost in soft commits to firm commits to funding, man, sometimes it's painful to see what you have in soft commits and what your pull through is. So the throughput on leads is one thing, but the pull through on the other side, that's the biggest area of improvement for us, and that just comes down to creating a better experience for the investors.
I love that. And that's so true. And that's just the, conversion process. And a soft commitment is not, money in the bank by any means, just like a deal in escrow is not a closed deal. So you have to be holding hands through this process. And just to look through my process and kind of give you my tips and secrets, which I hope everyone does, because better salespeople, better, I don't want to consider myself a salesperson. I'm obviously in sales, but I'm a relayer of information. I'm conveying the story. I'm painting the picture. Our deals will be raised and funded with or without you. And having that mindset mentality and actually a track record of that actually being the case is the best way to sell for your deals. Because if you have a track record of saying, hey, here's the funding deadline, and guess what? If you don't have your money in here at this time and you think you're going to invest and you soft commit means nothing. I need your money in the bank. That's how you're in the deal. That's how you're truly committed. But what I do is obviously we do automation for, email blasts and whatnot. Yeah, I'm sorry, not news. I'm not sending you individually, nor the 15,000 contacts in our database, the email, but we do that. And then people email me back, or I'll have a conversation with them. I'll have a conversation, they email me, then I'll put them in a follow-up folder on my calendar. I'll do follow-up probably every Tuesday, or, wherever I find a gap in the calendar, I put it in there, I copy and paste it. And then all I have to do is go to their name, see their commitment, say, hey, y'all, let me have any questions. Then I'll follow up with them. Then I'll kind of lead them to where I need to go, or they'll let me know one way or another. Ultimately, what I'm looking to solve for is a hard yes or no, but maybe is the world I can't live in. I understand one way or
Mhm.
another, but I want to get out a yes or a no. So I'll get to the point, and I think Rob basically said this on the panel he was on. Craig will basically ask, we've done all this and all that. Are we do business together? I'll literally just as directly as possible say, are you interested in investing in this deal? And I'll just ask him that. I'm not afraid of a yes. I'm not afraid of a no. The only thing I am afraid of is not asking the question. And if you're in sales, you're in the listening business and then a good question business and nothing else. So you
Mhm.
really need to move them through that process. It's super crucial. And the money is in the follow-up. Thinking that you have this opportunity that's just going to fully subscribe itself is just frankly on more often than not, kind of an arrogant mindset and mentality. And maybe I come from a perspective of having a baby face in real estate and getting no's and no's and no's and really having to push harder than probably my peers and contemporaries to get a yes, because I have to put myself top of mind, and being so persistent with communication, it's kind of just something that's been ingrained into me because I haven't been. If I wasn't like that, I would have never gotten any deals done in my past life of selling homes, or, raising as much money as we've raised recently, is basically just pushing through and making sure that people are there, because people are busy. It's not they don't want to invest in your deal. It's just they have busy lives. You've got multiple daughters. You have your wife. You've got all these companies going on. It is my duty to make sure that you are aware of what's going on in the process. And if I don't communicate that to you, that process is being lost in the shuffle, and that cannot be mistaken. We work so hard to get people into our funnels. We work so hard, for that. These people are low hanging fruit. You're not having to scrape through, the 10 million accredited investors in this country to find them. That's not the
Mhm.
process. So you really have to make sure that you push through, that you are people top people's mind, and you are working through the process, and having people ghost you is part of that, but just push through and email people back. And sometimes people come back late and they say, hey, I'm so sorry, do you have another deal to raise for? And they'll come into the next deal. So keeping that open mind and realizing that you're probably not annoying people. I mean, obviously if you're spamming people with calls and whatnot, that's kind of an annoying process. But within
Yeah.
reason, and kind of changing up the sequence, if you called them one week, email them the next week, and then if you called and emailed them before, then send them a text, change up the cadence, change up the flow, but hit in through the mediums you can.
Yeah. I mean, it comes out, you talked about it earlier, right? Like, how are we going to stay relevant in the era of AI? Right now, you can use AI as a tool, right, to do those automations and things that you said. But one thing that I've learned about you by spending, a week with you in Arizona, Gib and I were talking about this, your follow-up skills are phenomenal. Like, I haven't
Thank you.
witnessed someone whose follow-up skills are as excellent as yours. And that's it's a simple thing to do, but 99% of people suck at it. Let's be honest, right? I
Well,
mean, it's just one of these things that, like, just show up, send the text, send the email, have a process and do it. And like nowadays, like, your follow up should be the norm. But because it's not the norm, you are like up here. I'm like, the regard that I have for Craig and his skills is like, I'm like, wow, this guy's amazing. When that should be
well,
the baseline, but
But
it's
my
not.
thought is this, is that I'm just doing what the job description was. And it's sad that we live in a society where people just don't want to go the extra mile and don't want to climb to the top. But the extra mile is
Yeah.
lonely for a reason, I suppose. But I don't really feel like I'm going that above and beyond, as opposed to that's just what you're supposed to do. And
Yeah.
it's not whatever, the best you can do, it's whatever it takes. Right. And
Mhm.
whatever it takes is, hitting people up and following up. But I'm, very flattered by that, high paid compliment there. But people have set such a low expectation that just by us doing our job, sadly, we're setting a competitive edge. So, I guess that's kind of the world we're in right now. That's another,
Yeah.
systemic issue, but that's why I want to surround myself with the best of the best, like people like you and everyone we're at dinner with, where I know those are, closers. Those are people that work hard, the people that follow up, do what they say, are honorable and respectful, and also just fun guys to be with. With that said, how do you vet a sponsor though? You obviously see everyone, do you have, some sort of a questionnaire, or is it really just more of a gut test and a feel test that you kind of go through to kind of identify the people you want to partner with and work with?
It definitely a big part of it's gut, right? When you get to be older and you've come across enough personalities and you've been in the business long enough, you can have a process, you can have a system. You should have that. You should look at the underwriting, right? You should go visit the site. You should meet the entire team. But I think, for me and any, dealing in business, if I'm going to do business with somebody, whether I'm going to invest in them or invest with them, whatever that case may be, if they're going to get my time, which to me is my most valuable asset, or my money, which is second to that, it's a gut feel thing. It's funny. We we interview our investors after they fund, and I go, hey, why'd you invest? Like, tell me, like, what's up? Like, why did you do this? Because I really want to understand the psychology of why they truly invest, like, afterwards. Um,
Not during the
and
process, obviously. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
right.
That's
So,
besides the point, frankly.
yep. So like, when you do that, I got the same answer. And it's the same reason in the same way in which I vet sponsors. And you said it earlier, those two words, gut feel. And it's really hard to put a metric on that and a process on that, and on intuition. But it's really getting to know who that person is at the root, what makes them tick, what motivates them, right? I'll use Bala for an example. Like, when I met Bala, so here's Bala, made zillions in real estate and sold a tech company, right? Homeboy's got some money. right? He's done very well for himself. So when he's going to start this company and I'm like looking to come in and give him my time, sweat equity, we're going to go take and build this thing together. I was like, what? I've asked him multiple times. I'm like, why are you doing this? Like, stay at home, right? Just
Like,
sleep
you're
in.
good. You
Like,
don't
dude,
need to make any more money. Yeah.
you do not need to make any more money.
Yeah.
And I was like, why are you doing this? And I came to realize two things. One, he what gets him excited, he tried to retire. He's like, I'm not good at it. I can't sit around, have my coffee, read a book. He's like, that's boring to me. He goes, I get excited. I'm building big stuff, right? I built a big tech company for 15 years. I built a real estate empire over 13 years. So like, that's all he knows. And now we're tasked with building something monstrous that gets his juices flowing. And it doesn't matter. That's what fires him. That's part one. Part two is he told me he wants FU money, right? He's like, I want to go buy stuff that, you need a ridiculous sums of money. And he gave some examples. And I was like, okay. So those are kind of the things that make him tick. So when vetting that sponsor, man, gut feel and really getting to the root cause of what makes them tick and, really what is the fuel that gets them up every day to do the thing they need to do on top of their experience and track record and all the stuff you'd normally look at. I think that's an important part that only comes with spending an ample amount of time with somebody.
I love that. And that's why, strategically, for good reason, why we wanted you and Gib and Co. at dinner with us and to make sure that you feel that much more comfortable with us. Because when we do a deal together, you can say, hey, I've been with them at this many places. I know what they're like. Oh, yeah. And by the way, here are their other, past capital partners and investors. The hood's up. Feel free to audit us in any which way you like. And we need to make people feel comfortable with that. And that really helps with the gut test because, frankly, we want to wear suits to, appear a little bit more mature as we have baby faces, but we hope that we don't come off as unprofessional just because we're younger. But with that said, it's super crucial to have the social proof and to have the people there and then also have the reference list for you to kind of sift through and to go down at your disposal to make you feel comfortable. I was just actually podcasting right before this. This will air a week after, but I was with Matthew Owens,
Yeah.
who has his 200 point due diligence checklist. And for a lot of people, they might get scared, but for him as a more analytical guy, great. Perfect. You don't pass
He's
my
a,
gut test. I don't, my gut test, we can sometimes get manipulated here and there. So he's got his process. You have yours and it comes through, hey, let me make this process easier for you. Let me, do little things and follow up and to make sure I'm doing the little things right. Because if I do the little things right, the big things are also going to be done right. Okay, well, let me also now show you who you are, introduce who are other people that are around. So to create that network effect where it's going to be impossible for you to say no when we do have an opportunity coming up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
how,
Matthew
how
Owens being an accountant, like yeah, he's a crazy, crazy dude. I love Owens.
you guys probably share a lot of opinions and thought processes, being more libertarian minded than not, would be
Oh,
my my
we do.
guess. Yeah.
We
Yeah.
definitely do. Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you find your investors, by the way? I'm always fascinated to know this equation. Where do you find them? How do they come out of the woodworks? Are these kind of people you did past life, business deals with? Because I'm always thinking at my end, it's like, well, being, 29, 30, I don't know how many friends are, open-minded and know the real estate space. But as you get older, you start thinking about retirement planning, whatnot. But I would just be curious to know, how do you find your investors? And from a marketing perspective, I'm sure you're tracking all this stuff. And, how
Mhm.
long does it take to, typically convert them or, what does that cycle and process look like?
So I think it's an amalgamation of like different of multiple different lanes or verticals by which we get our investors. One, as we talked about before, is building a relationship and tapping into a capital allocator and giving them the tools and the resources they need from a marketing perspective to get into the veins of their investors, right? So you're gaining their trust to gain the trust of their investors. That's been a tactic and a strategy that I know you've deployed flawlessly as well. Then for my own personal network, uh, you know, I've had the opportunity to work in a variety of different industries. I'm a relationship guy, as we've gotten to get to know each other. I'm a straight shooter. I'm always going to give you the honest truth about everything, and I always try to follow through and follow up in the fundamentals that we spoke about. So that trust has developed with a lot of people in my network, and I think I've earned respect from some of the businesses that I've built. So that when I transition into this real estate space, people are like, "You do what now?" They're like, wait, you're doing real estate now? Like, I thought you had a marketing company. That didn't make sense. Or I thought you had a medical distribution company. So, but because I've built and scaled those businesses and had success with them, and people see the lifestyle that I live, that is probably where I get a lot of my investors, is because they see the life that I live. They see me I mean, I'm blessed to be kind of jet set around the world. And they're like, well, how did you do that? And I'm like, well, it's through passive investing. It's through creating good businesses and relationships, and people want some of that juice. So that's people in my network seeing that and experiencing that is where I honestly get a lot of my personal network. People like, that I haven't talked to since high school, just randomly reaching out. And they're like, dude, you're doing some great stuff. Like, how do I get some of that sizzle? That's been a big part of it. So that, and the third vertical being just traditional SEO, pay-per-click ads, and the traditional methods of marketing, lead magnet, come into a nurture, and then book them for a call and then turn them into an investor. So it's, there's no silver bullet, right? So you got to kind of put your lure in multiple different ponds. And I've found that those three ponds have yielded us a good success.
I love that. And you just want to leave, I'm the biggest believer in this. I wouldn't be able to sleep well at night. It would keep me up at night if I knew that we didn't turn over every single stone, look in every nook and cranny, and give everyone the best
Mhm.
experience possible to make us undeniable, where it's not an us situ between us and the competition. It's just a timing situation. With that said, you did mention something there, which was the jet setting perspective. We talked about this, of course, at dinner, and then in the show notes, talked about this as well. And this is something really unique to you, and you really are living the lifestyle of someone who gets the receipt of working really hard, crushing it at life, and then also creating a lifestyle for themselves where they can be nimble and live off the passes and the residuals while still working at the nomad lifestyle, which no one can navigate those things better than yourself. But with that said, you did mention that you're selling your very large house in the Carolinas, and you and your wife, if I'm not mistaken, once the girls are off to college, are going to be jet setting and going from point A to point B and kind of going to Spain, I believe, to start. Do you want to tell that story and kind of that thought process there? Because that's very unique to you and also a cool avatar, maybe perspective, and a way to kind of sell what you're talking about right now for people to get out of that rat race, to buy their
Mhm.
back time back, to get that autonomy, to live a better lifestyle, to live more comfortable. So would love for you to kind of create some inspiration for folks out there who, have dreamed about what you're about to do.
Yeah. So I think a lot of people, we're conditioned sort of at birth and with societal norms that we're supposed to, go through high school, go to college, get your degree, invest in your 401k, then retire at 65. That's the traditional path by which we're supposed to go through. And I'm here to say it's kind of BS, right? And obviously you're proving that that's the case as well. It's that's a lie. And you don't need to wait until you're old to be able to do those things. So whatever that is for you, for us as travel, I'm a big believer that the older I've gotten, the more that I've done in this space, I've accumulated wealth and bought cars and houses and all these things. And I realized that like none of that stuff makes me happy. I thought it would, right? I thought I needed this stuff to make me happy, but I realized what makes me happy is creating experiences and memories. Because at the end of the day, all that stuff, I don't take that with me, right? If we're these celestial beings that are just taking in experiences and like honing our souls, like that we take with us, right? What's in my Roth IRA and my, and all my real estate investments, that doesn't come with me. So money's a vehicle to be able to go create experiences. I think people understand that, but they think they need to wait until the older to do that. What I'm saying is, through all my travels, and I've traveled to 40 countries so far, through my lifetime. And I always ask people who are older and traveling, what is the one thing that they always say? Or people when they're having their last moments, before they pass, it's always like, I wish I did more. I wish I lived more. I wish I traveled while I was younger when my knees didn't hurt, my back hurt. So, being in my late 40s, I'm in a position now through businesses that we've created and the passive income that we have coming in through all our investments, that I now have the opportunity to go sell all our stuff, right? Literally everything. Hey, we're going to reduce our life, as you know, per our dinner down to a carry-on and a backpack, put a few things in storage, and then we're going to go live full-time nomadically for a minimum of 2. We're now considering 3 years. And our first stop is Portugal for 2 months.
Or that's what I
Then we
was.
might
Sorry
shoot
about
over to
that. Yeah,
Spain. You were
misremembering
close.
that. Yeah,
You were
yeah.
close.
Same little area. Yeah.
Yeah, same area.
I
And
pride
and
myself on
really,
my active listening though. So yeah,
I was very impressed that you
yeah.
actually you got a country over. So we're gonna go live that life, right? So we're gonna go live the life that they say you have to wait until you're older to live, but live it now because it's non-traditional. I'm always a big fan of non-traditional, especially being libertarian. And I believe that, we really need to kind of go out there and live our best lives because this isn't a dress rehearsal, right? Like I don't get to go do this again that I'm aware of, right? So why not do it now? Why wait until I'm older? And then be able to take our friends and our family and our loved ones and bring them along on the ride, right? Because it's in those experiences that we gain the greatest growth. And at the end of the day, it's through growth that we feel the most alive. So that's what I'm super excited about. And I built businesses that allow me to do that remotely, right? And you know this, right? You can in the today's day and age be able to do a lot of these things in real estate and in marketing, and we've got a few other businesses, and they're all remote. So, and that was all intentionally designed 5 years ago with what we're about to start in August. So
It's
it's
so
it's
awesome.
coming to fruition, man. I'm pretty stoked.
Yeah, well, I can really respect it, and this is probably why we get along so well. Not only do we see the world from the same lens, but I love traveling, and I can really relate to that story. I had a really unique situation before I moved to Phoenix, Arizona. I was actually in a situation where I had a month gap. I just double ended a really big deal at the time in the Bay Area. And I was like, okay, well, I have nothing to do. I start my next job in January, like 6th or 7th. It's middle of November. I'm going to buy a flight to Asia. So I went to Asia for a month and a half. I went to Thailand and Bali. And what
Nice.
happened 2 months later? Oh, a little thing called COVID happened. Guess what? At that point, I would have never had the opportunity to go to Asia, nor would I have done it where I have zero responsibility. No one messaging me regarding an escrow, messaging me about regarding, that portals aren't working or documents. It was that moment in time where I could capture that. And I'm so grateful that I had that opportunity. And, with that said, when you're on your deathbed, you're not going to regret the money that you spent traveling. You're going to regret the things you didn't do. And, life is too short to not have conversations like this, to not enjoy who you work with, and to go see the things you want to see while your body is at its best. And, fortunately, or sorry, fortunately, you've aged very well. If I could, or any of us could age as well as you, or give any tips and tricks, we'd all appreciate it. With that said, do you have any aging tips and hacks? Because you are the youngest looking 48-year-old, 49-year-old I think any of us have ever seen. So please, please, please share.
Yeah. So tips are honestly, if you focus on eating healthy, I think, we are what we eat, right? So being over the top neurotic about the food you put in your mouth, which is difficult to do in the US, right? And it's a whole other podcast onto itself. But being very,
Part
very
two is going to
focused
be
on
an
what we eat.
incredible episode, by the way.
Oh my God, I can't wait for this because we're going to
Yeah.
dive deep. I mean, I actually, it's a whole nother story, but I actually had autoimmune back in 2019, and I couldn't walk. It was one of these things, and it's a whole nother long story where I didn't realize that the food I was eating and the toxins that were coming from my water and my air and all those things that collectively added up. And I was able to, there it is, I was able to completely heal myself naturally without any pills, without any needles, by just changing what I was putting in my body. And I thought I ate healthy at the time, but now I'm nuts about it. From the lotion I put on my skin, I put olive oil on my skin. Like I don't, the deodorant I have is basically not deodorant, right? The toothpaste I use is completely different. So all those things matter. They add up. They're like, it's like little, you're putting a little bit of toxicity into your glass of toxicity. So that I feel has made me look youthful. Taking care of my body, making fitness a priority every single day to get out there and move. Like sitting is the new smoking. You got to get up and got to move. Find a way to put that. I mean, it's the obvious stuff, and then reduction of stress and sleep. Right. If you can nail those four things: eat right, exercise, reduce your stress, and the best free, age reducing tool out there is sleep. A lot of us get stressed out or don't eat right or don't exercise. It impacts our sleep. And that's where the magic happens. That's where the repairing happens, right? I mean, just think about it, right? If you have a couple too many cocktails, you don't sleep for a couple days in a row. You get bags under your eyes, you look like garbage, and it snowballs. Then for some people, it becomes just their normal behavior. They need 4 cups of coffee to be able to get their day going, and that becomes normal. That's not normal, right? So, I think that's been big. And the last part, man, I don't want to forget this one is whatever this is for you, but that spiritual connection, right? Whatever that means, whatever that is for somebody, like having that spiritual connection, I think really is for me what sort of unlocked everything, over these last few years is that part of it. So you get that all in, I guess all that collectively, Craig, would be called balance. And it really works. So
Well, you really are living the dream lifestyle. You're someone I really do look up to, and I really appreciate you coming on the show and working with us here. Derek, where can people find you, get in touch with you, because they do need you? And I haven't said that as I think with as strong of conviction as the fact that if you are in this business, if you're starting, you don't have any media presence, pick this guy's brain, reach out to him, and really utilize him. Where can people find you?
yeah, thank you for that, Craig. So there's, I'll give you two avenues. One is you can just go to adaptmedia.com. Agency. So adaptmediaagency.com. And you can book an appointment with me directly right there on our website. Or you can email me directly at Derek. So it's Derek, like the way Jeter spells it. So Derek at adaptmediaagency.com. Just drop a note like, hey, this is what I'm looking to do. This is what I need help with. And, I'm not a hard seller. I'm just there to add value. And if it works for you and want to do business together, awesome. Right. So I'm all about relationships and helping people because I think that that's what ultimately pays us back. So I'm happy to even just give people advice. Like they got a question about their marketing. Like bring it. I'm here to help, man.
I love
Especially
it.
your
Well,
listeners, brother.
as they say too, it's not every time, it's overtime, Are you going to be going to any conferences where people can meet you in person coming up? Are you going to Best Ever? Hopefully you're coming to our conference in New York.
If I'm not somewhere like in Medellin, Colombia or something like that, I will be making to as many conferences as possible. Yours in October, right? Mid-October?
September 16th.
September 16th. Okay. I have to look. I don't know if we're still in
Yeah.
Portugal
Well,
or
I'll send you
not.
details soon, but nevertheless, are you going to go to Best Ever conference?
It's funny. I wasn't, but everyone's telling me I need to,
I
so
think you
I'm pretty
should.
sure. All
Selfishly,
right,
because we're
I'm
going to
going
host
then.
2 more dinners 2 nights in a row, and obviously,
All right, I'm
someone's got
sold.
to eat the
That's all I
food.
need.
Yeah.
That's all I need. Yep. As long as we're getting seafood towers again, I'm down. So count
Yeah,
me in for
say
best
less.
ever.
Absolutely cool. Well, Derek, thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you to everyone for listening to this episode of Fun Friday, and we'll catch you next week. Peace.